Hi, this is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com with another episode of Fast Action Fridays. And today my special guest is here to talk about, the IRS and the things we need to know to keep ourselves and our businesses safe and productive and out of legal hassles. Her name's Abby Eisenkraft, and you've got a brand new book out, which I just learned about like 2 weeks ago, called 101 Ways to Stay Off the IRS Radar. So later on, we're going to be telling people how they can get their hands on that book, check it out. We're going to talk about the free gift you've got for people. And before we get to that, Abby, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm a federally licensed enrolled agent, and my designation comes from the IRS, and my job is to protect people from the IRS. And that means not making mistakes where one could bring on trouble, because it's so easy to do it right. The rules are there, the laws are there, and there's a lot of leeway, and there's so many good things for self-employed folks, and we don't want to miss out on those things, and we want to learn how do we take advantage of the things that we need to know about. And one of my areas of expertise are tax problems and how to prevent them and how to fix them. So there's many people who are in big trouble, and I have to tell you, not one of my people has ever gone to jail. And I have people who haven't filed in 10, 20, 30 years, and we get them fixed up, and that's my job, and I love to do it.
You bring up a good point, because my husband and I found ourselves where life got in the way, and then maybe a little bit of fear got in the way, and we got behind in filing. Not that we owed anything. We had enough in. We knew we didn't owe. It's just that we didn't quite get a lot around to it. There were deaths in the family and major medical problems, and one day you put it off, suddenly becomes a week and a month, and then you're suddenly looking at the next year's income tax and going, oh my God, what am I going to do?
It absolutely snowballs, and people are fearful. I had a woman came in, and she hadn't filed for 10 years, and she had a problem with just 1 year, and she didn't understand that even though she missed that year, she could have filed the other ones subsequently. Yes. She could have filed, but she was like so focused on that 1 year, and she was frozen with fear. And you know what? We got her all caught up, and she's like, this is the first time I could breathe. I could sleep. I could go to my mailbox without saying, oh goodness, is the letter waiting for me? And
yeah, so you don't want to open any mail.
Yeah. And
I can feel for her, but our biggest surprise was we had no problems. No audits came of it, and we ended up with refunds that even our accountant didn't think they were going to honor. And what a surprise that was.
Right. Well, the problem is we have people in the case of the woman I spoke about, and then in similar cases to yours, where they left money on the table because some of their filings were outside of the statute of limitations and they couldn't get it. And you might have been on the cusp, you might have had some roll forwards, however it was that it was granted to you, but some people are just outside of that window. And when they find out that, oh my God, had I just filed, I just left thousands of dollars on the table. But remember, it's a felony not to file. And therefore it's just something we have to stop and deal with. It's just one of those things that you say, it's just, I have to do it.
You have to make time for it.
Right. It's an obligation. If you can't do it, and I'm not a big proponent of that, not just because it's what I do, but it's really hard for someone to sit down once a year and become an expert in tax law. I am highly credentialed. I do 100 plus hours of continuing ed every year, and I teach to other practitioners. And I'm sorry, someone sitting down, plugging in a couple of numbers, shoving numbers in boxes does not make you a tax expert. And if you think that box is going to give you the answer when you're stuck.
I learned that. I had to file my first 1099 miscellaneous because I finally had a VA for enough of 2016 that I hit that threshold that I had to supply one.
Yes.
It's a simple form, but I'll tell you, the language on the form itself and the language online wasn't that clear,
Not at all. And a lot of people think, hey, I'll go to Staples and I'll get those copies and I'll mail them to my recipient. Done. but they don't understand that there's a portion that must go to the Internal Revenue Service. So
exactly.
I have to say,
I had that.
The resources are there, but they don't make it easy. That's for sure.
No, even the little things like there's nowhere on the form that says don't write in the red boxes. You know, write in the little bitty white space that's about this big. You know,
that reminds me of a Homer Simpson one with his taxes. You know, they said don't write anything here, and he'd write okay. For the diehard Simpsons fans out there, you know, he would do that.
Right. Or the one that says, because I got my copy from an accountant, and it was one of those double ones because they do a lot of them for clients. So they run them through their dot matrix printer and I only needed one. So, you know, I could handwrite it because I had all the information, but right in the middle of it says, do not fold or staple or separate this. And I'm going, okay, well, how do I send this part to them and this part to my VA if I don't separate them? And all they meant was don't separate them, the top one from the bottom one, not the copy B from the other person. It was very confusing.
Well, there's
and very stressful because I didn't know.
More modern ways to do them, and anyone with a dot matrix printer, bless them, but it's not how it's done anymore.
Right.
There are other ways to do it, and we just joined the modern world and we do it.
Right. And I also thought I should be able to file this online, but you have to apply to be able to do it online. So there was that time. So you can't wait till like the 30th to do it.
No, that's the equivalent of writing the book report on the bus to school.
Exactly. But there was so little information. I had all of the information. Yeah. You know, we're talking, you know, less than $1,000 and for all of that hassle. And I wasn't ready to have my accountant do our regular taxes yet. And yet all of this has to be done ahead of time. So,
right. But again, there are ways to do that, and the resources are out there. It's just something that takes time. You know, education takes time. And as sole proprietors, as business owners, even small partnerships and corporations, unfortunately, you wear a lot of hats, right? You are working in the business and on the business, and you've got to make sure that you give the time for the tax part, because it can consume your life when it goes south.
Absolutely. All right. So that's a great entry into you giving us some tips about staying off the IRS radar. What are some of the beginner things, the fast action tips that everyone, particularly home-based business owners, really need to know and may not be doing?
I think one of the first things we can start with would be keeping proper books and records. Because without that, the IRS says that's not a business if you don't keep books and records. Therefore, it's a hobby. Therefore, we'll let you have your income tax, but we won't give you deductions, or we'll limit those deductions because it's a hobby. And they want to see certain things in place. For example, there should be a separate business bank account. It doesn't have to be a business bank account. It could be a separate account, but one that's used only for business. And the reason is that you're going to be putting, you're going to be putting your income and in that account, and your expenses will be paid out of that account. And again, separate tracking is the way to do it. And people go, oh, that's so much work. But let me tell you what happens on audit. They're going to take both bank statements, and if they see all of it deposited into the personal account, now every time you have a deposit in your personal account, they're going to deem that as business until you fight it and prove that it's not. So I had an audit for a young guy in real estate, and he had one bank account, and here's what happened. The auditor's going on down the line, this unreported income. I'm like, no, it is a birthday gift from mom and dad. Onward to the next thing. No, that was a loan his friend paid back, but each line item we had a fight. Had he just kept it separate, it would have shown he had business intent, and that his the way he ran this and the way he approached it was one in which that we would be able to get his business deductions because he was doing it the right way. Another one that we had, the woman had two accounts just like you, but what she did was a couple of checks accidentally made it into that other account. And of course, what's the auditor going to say? Tax evasion 101. You put it in your personal account. You didn't pick it up on your business. So you're not going to get many fans from the IRS with that either. So you really, look, we all make mistakes. We're human. Sometimes we get to the bank, we have the wrong card, but there's ways of dealing with it. Document it, transfer it, and then you're okay. But if you make a habit of it, you're just saying, hey.
You're asking for trouble. You're saying.
But I'll tell you a quick funny story. That woman who did that, she was very upset that she was chosen for audit. And if you would have seen the documentation she sent in with that tax return, she said, why am I being audited? And I looked at it, I go, why would you not be audited? This is a mess. So what happened was, before she hired me to come defend her, she got into it with the IRS. And she started screaming at them, going, I have nothing to hide. In fact, if you don't believe me, you can come here and see. And you know what?
They did.
They took her up on her offer. And that's when she called me. And I'm like, oh, boy. So I went over and we wanted to make sure that her home office passed the test. And you know what? It did with flying colors. But the moral of the story is we don't offer more than they're looking for. And we certainly don't invite this stuff. And that's the big takeaway. The things you do or don't do are the deciding factor of whether you're going to get that green and white certified envelope where they're going to say, come on down, either for a desk audit or if they're going to do a correspondence audit and ask you to supply documentation.
Exactly. And some people I know get so riled up because they have to pay taxes or whatever. And it's like, listen, if you've got taxes due, that means you're generating income, and that's something to be proud of. That's part of being in business, right?
Most definitely. And people will yell about things now politically, but the point is that we have to do this. It's the law. And you certainly don't want to say, I'm a tax protester, because they put you in jail. And you certainly don't want to just say, well, I'm going to report part of it, but not all of it, and part of it's cash, and I will leave that off. And in the book, I talk about cash businesses and how they can find out about that cash that's unreported. And it's funny stuff. People think that whatever they're trying is original and no one else has thought of it or done it but them. And you know what? It's not true. Oh. It's all been heard, said, and done before. So
right. And am I right that the IRS doesn't really care whether it was accidental or whether you did it on purpose? The point is, it got done that way.
Intent. If there's, like I said, you can go to a store and that day you're buying something for your business and oops, you put it on your personal card accidentally. And look, we're all human. We make mistakes. But again, they're looking for pattern, because what do they say? One time it's an accident. The second time it's a pattern. And then there's intent when it's multiple times, because it's showing you're just really... Yeah. I always equate it to the cheating husband. They're not sorry they did it. They're sorry they're caught. And that's basically what happens with people who are in tax trouble. Many times the people who are intentionally doing this, they're sorry they got caught, but they wouldn't change their way if it wasn't for this.
Okay, so keeping proper records, make sure you keep your personal and your business separated. Absolutely. That's like... Absolutely. The number one thing. Right. Everything follows from that, right?
It sure does. As a self-employed person, it doesn't matter how big your business is. If it's in your house, that's still a business. If you're running it that way and treating it that way, and we don't belittle these things because it is a business, and you have every right to take your allowable deductions if this is what it is. So the biggest thing that I see entrepreneurs do is that come tax time, now they have a year's worth of stuff to go through, and it's overwhelming. And because we're so busy working in the business, we don't work on the business, and that's a problem, right? So the biggest takeaway I can suggest is, even if it's 5-10 minutes a week, pick a day, pick a time, and just keep your records. And it does not have to be an online bookkeeping program. If some of them is like learning Mandarin, it's difficult. People don't want to do it. So you can use Excel. You can use a spreadsheet. I did an audit for an attorney, and she kept her records in a comp book, like a child's composition book. And you know what? She did it timely. She did it organized. Why should that not be allowable? And it certainly was. And she survived that audit because her records were timely and it was all there.
Yeah.
So it's what someone's used to. It's your fit. Some people are really amazing with technology, such as cats. And then there's other folks who give me the
some
compo.
people, and some people use not having that technology as their excuse for not getting to it.
They'd have another excuse if it wasn't for that. Again,
yeah, exactly.
Even 15 minutes a week, you can get it all together. Just track that income. And as a business person, don't you really want to know how you're doing? And how would you know that if you didn't keep your records? Let me give you an example. When I first started out, I said, I got an office in Manhattan. I had 4 clients. It was sink or swim. I said, oh my God, what am I going to do? I have 4 clients. And I ran my numbers and I said, I need 40 to break even. And I hustled. And that year I did 72.
Wow.
But every year after that, what I did was, how was this March compared to last March? How was this week compared to that? I'm able to look at my numbers and look at my comps because I keep all of that. And I use that to encourage myself. So for those folks who are self-employed and, when you work on your own, sometimes you feel a little isolated and you need a little bit of a cheerleading push. It's exciting to look at your numbers, see how far you've come, and motivate yourself by looking at these things and keeping your records and saying, wow, this was better. This year is better. Mm-hmm. This month is down, but that's okay. Maybe what I do is seasonal. And then you have an understanding of your business. And it's so important to do that.
Yeah, I agree. All right. What's another great tip?
Charitable donations, big area of fraud. Everyone always adds a little bit more. 8 bags of clothes, of course it was worth 20 grand. No, it's not. When we make charitable donations, we need receipts for everything. Gone are the days you can go to Petco and stuff it in the envelope and say, hey, $20, take that off. It doesn't work that way. Now the IRS has changed the law. A receipt is required for any donation you make. When that donation is over $250, now we need the acknowledgement letter. Thank you for your kind donation of $500 to the ASPCA, and we keep that in our records. When we give away items that are over $5,000 in value, again, not monetary, maybe your living room furniture or something, and you seem to think it's worth X, evaluation is required. So we want to be smart about these things because charitable donations, it's wonderful to be charitable, and we certainly should get tax breaks for it because we're allowed to do so, but we must keep our records and we need to note this down. And it's so easy to do right around the time of the donation. If you give bags of clothing, you know what? As you're throwing them in the bag, tick off 3 pairs of pants, 4 jeans, 10 ladies tops. It's so easy because figure it out. If you're on audit, and you have that signed dated receipt from the charity and your listed breakdown of all the items, and then you have the fair market value that you got from the Salvation Army guide online or Goodwill, and you have all this documentation. If you're called for audit, you're going to sit there with a grin and go, they'll go, ma'am, go home, have a good day, and you go, you too, and you're done. As opposed to the people who just have like some half-baked receipt and they made up a number with no backup. It's up to us to, if the IRS inquires, we have to defend any line item that we put there. But it's so wonderful to be able to do that. It's great fun too. Nothing better than going to an audit with a smirk.
Well, I love the passion you have for this because your job is not one that a lot of people I know would be passionate about doing.
I think it's great fun because it's a puzzle. Everyone's a puzzle. Everyone is different. Everyone's unique. And the excitement is when you do a tax return, you pull all the parts of them out and you put it together and you get the best results from them. When it's in an audit situation, my job is to fight. My job is to defend them. Now, they don't know tax law. I do. I'm going to go in there and defend them to the hilt with all of the law. And I have to tell you, there's a lot of IRS agents who are not so good with the law either. And I print it out for them. I bring it in. I said, well, yes, they can do this. And here's where it says we can. And again, my job is to defend the client and win.
Yeah. So err on the side of maintaining your records. I know the first year after I was divorced back in 1995 or something like that, there was a discrepancy called. They didn't do a full audit. They just got the letter that we show that you made this money. We can't see where you included it in your income. But I had records and it was just a matter of saying, no, here's my list of my income and here's the line item that you're asking, or the specific amount that you're asking about.
Right.
And
it happens. And again, you were able to defend yourself and walk away, and it was a beautiful thing. But yeah. I think people have to have fun with taxes. It's money. It's your money. Have fun with it. And that's the approach of the book. So it is 101 ways to stay off the IRS radar. And there's a whole lot of fun illustrations in there too, because I love to have, I want to be happy. I want to have fun. I want to laugh.
I'm waiting for my copy to come. All right. What's another tip? We've got a little bit more time here.
All right. Let's talk about business meals. Everyone wants to say, every meal that they have is business related, but truly, is it? So what do we need to do when we have a business meal? We have to note the person's name, who we met with, the company that they came from, if it's applicable, and a short one-liner on the business purpose. So for instance, I would say Kat Sturgeon and I went to lunch, and she's from X company, and our purpose was to talk about video promotion or a podcast or something. And we need to keep a log of these things, because you just can't say, I'm going to take you out, you're going to take me out, I'm going to take you out, or I ate lunch. The IRS says we all eat lunch. There's no business deduction for that.
My husband's like that. He says, okay, well, we went to the doctor's for him, and we stopped at Staples, and I'm in a rural area, so to go to any office supply, is a major trip for us. And he says, so we can just write all of this off. And I said, nah, it doesn't quite work that way.
Right. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about mileage really quickly.
Yeah.
We have to track our mileage. And if we don't do it, it's money out the window. Who wants to pay the IRS more than they have to? So we put the clipboard in the car, or for those a little bit more technological, there are many apps out there where you can just log it via the phone. But you know what? While the car's warming up, I'm happy to get the clipboard. I'm writing where I'm going. And you know what? When you add that up for a year, oh my goodness, do you have a nice chunk of change to write off? And it's all legitimate because you took the things that you could do.
And I created just a really simple Excel spreadsheet with my formulas in it. So I just put my beginning mileage and my end mileage, and it automatically calculates the actual mileage, so I didn't have to worry about it.
It's high tech.
And look at it up, yeah.
But and it's fine because odometer start, odometer end, and a quick one. Where did I go? I went to a meeting today. There's the clipboard. I logged it all, and I bring it back to the office, and my staff does what they need to do. They do their magic, and it's a write off.
Does it have to be the actual odometer reading, or just the amount of miles traveled?
They want odometer starts and stops. They do. And, and they don't love when it's recreated later, when you start going, well, I use MapQuest. And here's kind of an estimate of what it is. They go, no, because that's not a contemporary record. So,
okay, I have a question for you. We have one car that's very old. It's like 17 years old now. The odometer does not work in it anymore.
Oh, dear.
But we have our little mileage thing that's in the pocket of the doors, and that's, date, where we're going, mostly for my husband's medical things, which is a separate, deduction with medical mileage.
Correct. Separate, a different dollar amount than what the IRS will give you. Yep. Well,
but
that's an interesting one to defend. It's broken. So I think everyone now who doesn't have that, they're going to go in their car and bash it when they haven't read it.
It's like, come out and look at my car.
So, okay, well, what's interesting is someone who's really trying to make a case of it would be, okay, well, when did it break? And let's go look at some oil change records and see, this oil change record has some odometer reading, so you could have estimated from there. Again, my biggest thing is have an answer for everything.
Yeah, okay. And another tip, maybe something we forget to include that we should.
Besides cash? So here's the big one. Entrepreneurs, we pay tax on worldwide income. So what does that mean? That means cash, check, barter, PayPal, Etsy. Doesn't matter how it came in, worldwide. If someone outside the U.S. pays you for some work, that must be declared as well. And if we want to look at the poster child for someone who forgot that, we can look at Mr. Wesley Snipes. And the IRS wanted to send a message to everyone, and they jailed that man. And he was in jail for 3 years. So it's no joke. Every blue moon, they'll take a famous star and a regular Joe, and they'll put them through the mud to send the message to the rest of us that says, be compliant. And he said, oh, I'm not going to declare this income because it's not from the United States. Yes, but you are. So it's worldwide income.
Yeah, especially if you're taking deductions against that income, or maybe he wasn't. I don't know what he was doing, but
he was doing a movie and he got paid for it. And he said, well, the movie was outside the U.S. and he got together with some crazy accountants who also got jailed. But okay, the takeaway I want to leave everyone with more than anything else, if you're using a tax professional and you're hearing something that your gut tells you is not right, you take your papers back because it's the law. They're your papers. You can take them and you leave. You run. You say, you just get right out of there. Thank you. Have a great day. Just hightail out, because if someone's trying to deduct clothing, briefcases, coats, nonsense. Well, first I'm going to go to the Gucci store if that stuff's all deductible, but if it's not, if someone's trying to do those things, it's fraud, and we don't want to be part of that because you sign it, your name, penalties of perjury. So it has to pass your gut test, and that's really important, because if it doesn't sound right to you, research it. Hey, it might be something you didn't know, but most people have that. There's something that flags in you.
Right.
And
I know when we go to our accountant, I have the list of things that I'm absolutely sure go like on my Schedule C. And then we have the fringe things that I'm not quite sure if they're deductible. Mm-hmm. And if they are, what category do they fall under? I went over that several years ago when we first started doing websites. It's like, where do you put your website domain hosting cost? And my accountant puts it under advertising.
So the IRS is not so concerned with what you named it, as long as you could substantiate it. So if you could make there's room on the Schedule C to put website. Right. Well, on my worksheets for my clients, we certainly have lots of others, because you can be putting down many things, but you can put down website, you could put down advertising, business cards, domain names, the website expenses. They're not worried about what you named it, as long as you could back it up and prove it was a legitimate business expense, you're golden. And that's what it's all about.
All right. Well, as we get close to our half hour, give us one more juicy tip, and then we can talk about the freebie you have for listeners.
All righty. Juicy tip. Let's go with business vehicle. When we buy business vehicles, sometimes we drive that to work, to the office, and that is commuting. Tax Law 101 says commuting not deductible. So you're trying to take 100% of your business vehicle, and already the IRS knows something's wrong, because that can't possibly be true. Now, some people will leave the business vehicle at work, and they'll drive the personal vehicle there. But again, every time we look at a category that we're going to take, every time we look at an expense, now that you've heard this stuff, and soon when you get the book, you're going to have fresh eyes to look at your stuff. And what I want the listeners today to take away is to just look at each thing with common sense. You don't need to know tax law. You need some education, and you can get the help, but it has to make sense.
Let's do a hypothetical. Okay. Say a chef has a consulting job with a restaurant that lasts for, I don't know, two months. Is that commuting to work if they're being paid as a consultant and not as an employee?
Well, the question is, where the IRS would ask, where is your tax home? So if you go from restaurant to restaurant and you're not bringing people to your house and you're cooking there, then that would make sense to think that that part is commuting, and then the other part would be deductible. So let's give the example of a chef who, he doesn't cook for people at home as a business. He drives to work. So that part would be not deductible. And that would be personal. That would either be grossed up in a W-2, or you don't take those miles. Then when he got there, maybe he gets to the restaurant, checks in, says hi. Then he has to go to the greengrocer, and he's going to pick up fresh stuff. And then he goes to the fish market, picks up fresh stuff. All that in between driving is certainly deductible. But not the back and forth.
Right. But that's an employee. That's what we did.
Or a consultant. Okay.
Consultant too.
Another example. I mean, the question is where you do your job. And that's what I mean by tax home. So for example, if you work at home and your product is, I make webinars and I do everything from home, but then I had to go out to a business meeting, I had to go here and I had to go there. Anything outside your home business related would be a deduction. because you're outside your tax home.
Right.
But if you do something where it would involve you going somewhere else and someone's offering you the space there to do that job, then no, that's commuting. And
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Like,
all right. What's this awesome freebie that you have for listeners?
At the website, it's called reallifetaxadvice.com. So that's one word, reallifetaxadvice.com. I have a free gift for everyone. It's a PDF. It's called the Ultimate Tax Checklist. What you need to do before you press send, or before your tax professional, before you sign those pages for that person. You want to check for these things because these mistakes are so easy to make and things you might not be aware of. And it will save you a lot of problems and a lot of mail from the Internal Revenue Service if you just put this checklist up against your tax return. And it's my gift to everyone today.
Right. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on in February is because here in the United States, most of us are knee deep in either compiling our records for taxes, yes. Income tax that's due. Mine, I want done early this year.
You should. And one other note, do you know why it needs to be done earlier this year? Because of all of the scams. The IRS is battling every front with the scammers who are getting information from people due to all hacking and phishing and all the tricks and traps. And the problem is that the scammers are getting fake tax returns in before the actual people. And the refunds are going out, and millions of dollars have been lost.
So if somebody's already claimed something that's yours, and you've got another little fight on your hands there.
Right. So let me give you an example. You go to file your tax return, and it pops right out. And then you look at it, and you go, well, my social's right, my name's right. If I have dependents, these are all right. And there's nothing, you've gone through it, and you go, there's nothing no typos, no mistakes. That's a good indication you have identity theft because someone beat you to it. They got on the line and they edged you out. Scary times. Scary times.
Oh, that's great advice. I am so looking forward to getting a copy of your book, and definitely make sure and get her ultimate tax checklist, which I'm going to do because I'm going to go right down that checklist, make sure I've got everything. I mean, I've been doing, business taxes since 2007, full-time home-based business, but independent contractor since 1971. So I've had a Schedule C for a long time, but they change things. And
the laws change. I talk about home office in the book, how to really pass the test. I talk about a number of things that will really help self-employed folks. So I hope everyone enjoys it. Definitely leave a review. The book is available on Amazon in print and Kindle. And actually, they're running a special now where it's like $11 and like $4.99 for the Kindle. So,
awesome!
You're gonna save yourself thousands of dollars in tax problems by spending a couple of bucks. It's a win.
Absolutely. You've been a wonderful guest, and people don't know the technical hiccups we had getting this.
None whatsoever.
So, not only is she a great tax advisor about IRS related things, she's a good sport.
Well, if anyone has any questions and maybe they want for us to do something else, maybe a little bit later, closer to tax season, or maybe even afterwards. Now that I've filed, what do I do? If we have problems, we can certainly do that. So I would suggest everyone either at my website, reach out to me, reach out to Kat, and we'd be happy to entertain doing something else if we can help you.
Oh, that's a great offer. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
For being a wonderful guest today.
Happy filing, everyone.
This is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com, closing another episode of Fast Action Fridays. Be sure to come back next week when I've got another great guest that will help you rock your unique path to success. Bye-bye.